Hey, everybody, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
Yes, you are, and I'm Dean Riverman.
Indeed, I am. Dean, we're doing some feasting again today.
We are? We're
feasting on hot topics.
Yes.
Lists, a lot of lists, actually, in this one.
We do have quite
This is like
some good lists.
This is almost like the Oops All Lists edition or something. Not quite, but almost. Conversation starters, another round of Tech Bytes.
Yes.
So this fun stuff we get to do when we talk about, just things that are going on in the world of business and news and innovation and just interesting stuff that we just feel like talking about.
And the world keeps producing interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a never-ending supply of stuff to talk about.
Because Dean and I just like to get together and just ramble about topics from time to time.
And give you something to talk about that's meaningful.
That's right.
At your next family outing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hopefully not to start a fight over for some reason.
That's right.
All right. Well, this episode we're talking about drones.
Yes.
Rent costs.
Oh, boy.
Pollution. Sustainability. Set lists. Retirement. And just how much would you pay for a starter home?
There you go. See, we're covering a lot of bases here today.
Lots of good stuff.
A little bit of everything, from homes to drones.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Homes to drones. There you go. I think that could be our episode title right there.
There it is.
All that, and plus our usual, what's TEConnecting with us? Because we just, we need one more thing for us to ramble into.
Oh, and I got a good one.
All right. Well, good.
There you go.
I mean,
if I do say so.
I would hope you don't sit here and get like, I got a terrible one that's going to bore everybody. You might want to turn the episode off at that point. No, stick around.
You'll be inspired.
That's right.
There you go.
It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, Dean, let's jump into it, man.
Yes.
Let's start with your first one here.
Yes.
A little bit about drones. What's going on with the drones
Can
right
you
now?
feel the energy? Can you feel it coming? Like this
you hear the buzz in the air
of drones that are eventually going to be taking up the skies around America. Do you feel that coming? Not yet.
Not yet, and I'm still not quite sure that I want to.
Well, I don't know. I didn't ask if you wanted it to happen. I just didn't know if you were prepared.
I don't think I'm the one who gets to choose either. So.
Well, here's your headline. Amazon's delivery drones received approval from the FAA to extend its, quote, beyond visual line of sight, or the BVLOS, BVLOS, drone delivery operations. So now they're able to operate drones beyond where they can see them. The visual sight.
Drones?
Did I say drones?
I think you did.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I meant drones.
That could be the name of one of the drones. Drone the drone.
Drone the drone. So now they have the ability to fly them farther, right, than they have been able to do.
I did not notice they were just operating just line of sight previously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I don't know where they launch them from a tower, and that extends
it could be a long
line of sight or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they did have to develop and refine something called detect and avoid system over several years.
Sounds smart.
Submitted all the detailed engineering on the information to the FAA so that they could conduct these flight demonstrations to show just how safe this navigation is. The FAA has given it their thumbs up. So now, what is possibly stopping Amazon from these aforementioned claims of where they want to be? They want to be able to deliver to the customer in 30 minutes or less. Using highly autonomous drones. That is a goal of theirs.
Right.
And they have a goal of delivering 500 million packages per year by drone by the end of this decade. So in just, 5.5 years, they're going to be delivering 500 million packages per year using drones. To me, that feels like a swarm that's kind of coming, right?
It does.
I mean, how do you get that done if you don't
I don't know about you, but I live in a neighborhood where deliveries are constant. I mean,
it's constant.
My own house on some days can get 2, 3, 4 deliveries in one day from different things.
Do you feel sad when you don't get a delivery? It's like,
a little bit, yeah.
There's no Amazon person.
My wife likes to joke that like I get all the boring stuff delivered, like the stuff we need
like
for
the
the
necessities.
Household.
Yes,
exactly.
of course, you're that guy.
And then she's the one that gets the package,
fun
opens
stuff.
up, and is like, "Oh, look at these great new clothes."
Miles
cool
comes
stuff.
over,
And,
yay!
new stuff for Miles. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, here's some more scrubbing brushes. And,
That's right.
Dog food, the stuff we need to get by.
Thanks. Well, that is going to be delivered by drone now.
Maybe that'll make it more exciting.
There
They're like,
you go.
yeah, but the dog food got delivered by drone today.
Dude,
it
it'll be cool for like the first 10 times, and then that's really going to get
passe.
annoying. And it's going to get annoying in this way. because you were just down in Destin, I was asking you about this. You know, if you go down to Destin, I still love vacationing down there. One downside is the helicopters that fly ad nauseum up and down the beach. You know, flying people that have paid to do that. So all you hear, I'll do.
And I know drones can be quieter, but probably not. I mean, not gonna be as loud as a helicopter, but still loud enough.
Have you seen them? They're kind of big.
There's gonna be an audible buzz.
There's
in the neighborhood. Let's put it that way.
Do you think they'll come at night? Like, you know, they're going to deliver these things. They probably will.
Probably.
All hours of the day.
Yeah, I mean, what's to stop them?
So you got your window
that?
open, you're asleep, and now outside your window comes this. Yes.
Yeah. I want to know, are they going to be a little more gentle about delivering packages? I will say, because sometimes you get the delivery person, you see them on your front camera, just like chucking it up there from your sidewalk or something. Maybe they'll be a little more gentle. But alternately, though, I also feel like I get delivery drivers sometimes that will discreetly try to place packages like, you know, around a column or something or behind a plant so that it's not so obvious. And you also sometimes you get those like sweet videos you see of like drivers coming up and seeing like something that's broken and fixing it, or
the American flag,
or helping out a dog or something like that.
You
know, just fixing things up, whatever. I mean,
you think that's going to go away? I don't know.
I don't think the drones are going to do that stuff. I don't think that's going to be part of the program.
What else is it going to require? Like, because I've seen videos where you need a spot. You need to designate a spot.
That's a good point.
And if you're going to have this big X on your yard, well, that's telling all the the thieves exactly where your
X
stuff
marks
is going.
the spot for my Christmas stuff.
You know, if you're a thief, you're just watching the drones go by, and so, I don't know.
Is this going to be also
really interesting?
I don't know about you. When you buy something on Amazon, like I feel like you got to go through so many hoops now to like. Again, I know Amazon's still stupid convenient, but like you have to like pick like, okay, which address do I want to go to? If you potentially ship multiple places, what payment type do I want to use? Do I want to use my points? Do I want to use my gift card? Do I want no rush shipping? Do I want to delay it a couple days? Do I want to get that bonus $1.50 you get towards Prime? Do
you want to
Video,
feel good and put it all in one package a couple days later?
Exactly. Do I want my delivery day or whatever? Like, are we going to have one now? Like, do I want a drone or not?
Do you want it in 30 seconds via drone?
Do I want it dropping off in my front yard, the back? But I guess that's the other thing too, is if we're going to start using drones, they could potentially deliver to the back of your house.
Of course.
Instead of the front.
That's right.
You could have them like, just going back and like flying up onto your deck or something and leaving it there where it's a little more secure and private. So I don't know.
It's just fascinating. Well, here it comes. That's all I got to say is it ain't stopping. And now that the FAA is giving a thumbs up, I mean, what other barrier
That's pretty much full speed ahead, I would think.
Money's not a barrier for Amazon. They can throw money at this like it's nobody's business. So if there's no more regulation, quote unquote, and this is kind of maybe one of the last hurdles they get, I'm telling you.
Here's my prediction. That there's going to be some new layer level of Prime to allow you to have like the drone deliveries, like Prime Plus with drone delivery or something.
Yes, I see.
For an extra,
that's the marketer.
$40.
What are you giving them the idea for, dude? Shut it.
I would say they're not listening, but they probably are. And Amazon's probably one of those companies that does listen to everything that everyone says everywhere. So
hey, we got a good idea.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, if you want to throw a few bucks my way, Amazon, for giving you that idea, I'd be fine with that. Or at least, free Prime or something.
Just raising the cost is all you're doing. Much like these rents. What's going on here in the U.S. cities now?
All right. So, I think it's no particular surprise to anyone that rent prices have been skyrocketing especially over the last decade or so, I guess. Yes. But you might be wondering, like, hey, how bad does it get?
This is bad.
It's pretty
this
bad.
This makes my jaw hit the floor.
We live in, the tri-state, Northern Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana area. I think rent prices are pretty bad around here. And again, I haven't rented in a very long time, but I've had to help my mother out, with renting, and I've experienced how ridiculous they are compared to when I was renting 24, 25 years ago, something like that. Well, another great chart from Visual Capitalist that we love going to their stuff is the U.S. cities with the highest rent in 2024. And they broke down the top 10 cities in the country with one-bedroom median rent prices. Now, it should be...
Can I highlight that real quick? One bedroom.
Yeah, one bedroom.
Median.
Right. So not even necessarily the top.
Exactly.
But the mid-level rent prices.
There you
go. These aren't going to be much of a surprise for you. It's a lot of coastal cities. It's a lot of big cities. It's places where people expect to know that there's going to be high rents. But the prices still just kind of blow me away. Number one is New York, obviously. It always is New York. And they also note like the year-over-year change in pricing. And New York's easily went up the most, 11.1% year-over-year change. Now the median one-bedroom rent price in New York City is $4,200. That is more than my mortgage. That's more than my mortgage.
That's way more than my mortgage. And you get
for my 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
Yeah. That's way
nice
more
house.
That's almost 2x my mortgage.
Yeah.
And they get 1 bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's insane.
That is insane.
They're by far the lead here. Jersey City, which is, across the water from New York, is the next highest at $3,330.
How do you live in New York? I'm sorry, I got to go back to that.
Know.
How do you afford $4,200 for 1 bedroom? Dude?
I understand because there's a lot of California on here as well. Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Jose, San Fran's the third highest on here.
Yep.
I understand that you live in those big cities, your salaries are typically bigger too. The salary that we get comparable probably in those places would be much higher.
Yeah.
Which means, you all things considered, the percentage of your salary is probably a little more equitable based on these rents. But I'll say that as the caveat, that's not always the case. And I can't guarantee that's what's happening here because I still think that most of the folks are going to think this is pretty damn high.
Yeah.
Even if you are someone who collects a higher than average salary than we have in an area like this.
Yeah.
So, man, I don't know. To your point, I know there's these housing crises you can't get, and we'll talk a little bit about this later. The cost of homes themselves are skyrocketing, and then someone's like, all right, well, I can't afford to get a house. I guess I should rent.
Yep.
What are you looking at here? And I'll give you an example of this, too. Even, in our area here. I was a couple years back, about a year and a half ago, I was trying to help my mom find a new apartment. I was looking at places for her. I literally went and checked out an apartment complex that I lived in when I think it was the first one I moved into when I was 22 maybe, 21, 22. And again, we're talking 98, 99. I think I was paying maybe around $600 to $700 total. I think at that time, maybe probably closer to $600 initially.
For how many bedrooms?
For a one. It was a one bedroom.
Okay.
Again, nothing spectacular big. Well, I went and checked this place out, and they showed me literally the apartment right across the hall from the one that I initially had lived in myself.
Yeah.
They don't look any different. They've upgraded the carpet, and that's about it. Everything else still looked the same way it did 20 plus years ago.
Yep.
And they're charging over $1,000 now. For that.
Yeah. Well,
I think it was closer to 1,200 or so.
5 years hence.
Right.
So
and again, I get it.
That's not bad.
Prices have changed or whatever, but still, I was like, this place, really? Come on. So yeah, it's nuts. I don't know how people can live in these places. I don't know.
That's just, for me, it's crazy. It is crazy. And the distortion, I don't see why other people don't understand. To me, the distortion that's happening economically in these areas is problematic and unsustainable. I don't know how you can, I don't know how can you live in New York? How can you live in New York in a 1 bedroom in a family? In New York, I guess this is mostly New York City or Jersey City, or San Francisco at $3,000 for a 1 bedroom.
Yeah,
it's like what?
And and you got to figure.
And your point's right in that. So they're demanding higher salaries, but that's putting the whole nation out of whack.
Exactly.
It's like, it's not.
You shouldn't have to go somewhere and say all right, well, I need my salary to be $1 million now, so I can afford just to even live here.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be any good point to that. And you mentioned maybe I would bet a lot of these 1 bedrooms are probably single folks for that matter too, because 1 bedrooms are usually not going to be that great of an idea for a family. It could be maybe a couple, but most likely you're looking at folks that are single. So you're one income potentially, and that income needs to be enough to help you handle that much
I agree
a month.
with you. Maybe it has a compounding effect because the statistics are that people are having less and less kids.
Right.
People aren't having kids at all. Was it like 54% of people? I think I might have this wrong. Gen Z. Are not interested in having kids.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so they're going to live a life where, maybe 1 bedroom that they're paying astronomical fees for. Oh, my gosh.
And the sad thing is, you look over this list, a lot of these cities, the median rent price actually had gone down in the last year.
Yeah, a couple of them.
Like
Miami.
New York was up and Jersey City, but you have places like Miami that dropped 4.5%. Los Angeles was down to
tanking,
5%. And yet that's still, for Los Angeles, $2,300 is the median price a month there.
Right.
That's just... Man, I don't know.
I don't get it myself.
So we'll wrap back around to this with another topic that
yes,
you have a little bit later. But let's
Yeah.
shift over to talk about some pollution. How's pollution going in the world right now?
Just to kind of keep the bummer going here, it's just like
there's going to be a lot of bum outs in this episode.
Well,
I mean,
it's just one of those articles that you hear about global warming, and the pollution, whatever, and then you come across a headline like this: all but one of the 100 cities with the world's worst air pollution last year were in Asia.
Yeah.
All but one. So you take the top 100 cities that have the worst air pollution, all of them are in Asia. This is according to a new report that's out. And to me, that just seems, it's astonishing, number one. And it's a sad commentary, I guess, on the region, right? I mean, I guess so much of the manufacturing, so much of everything has gone to, and when we talk Asia, let me run over to the article here. I mean, it's stuff like the worst, Bangladesh. So I'll give you the top 5. Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Tajikistan, and Burkina Faso. Thank you. Are the top 5, worst as far as air pollution is concerned, is from a country standpoint. But when you look at the cities, 83 of the cities were in India.
Yeah.
83 of the top 100 are in India.
Nuts.
Have I mentioned I really don't have any desire to go to India? I mean, just think about that. 83 cities that are the top 100 pollution. Of course, they have a photo where you can kind of barely see anything in it. It's crazy to me. And then you read further on down. We don't see it. We don't see it here in America.
No, the closest we came is we had those Canadian wildfires.
Well, so that's what they reference to. So
and
North
people
America
experienced that in the Northeast.
Bingo, that's it. North America over the last couple of years was badly affected by the wildfires. In fact, it was bad enough that Canada actually surpassed the United States in regional pollution rankings, which I found was fascinating. And then, what is the most polluted city in America in 2023? Which one do you think? Just guess without
reading. You would
reading.
assume it's L.A. or New York.
Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes zero sense. Columbus, Ohio is like an hour from my house, right?
Yeah.
So basically it's this area.
Right.
And we were the most polluted city in the U.S. I find that really hard to believe.
And again, compared to what you're seeing in some of these other countries and compared to what pollution could look like.
No, yeah.
We're nowhere near
The only way that's possible is from the Canadian wildfires. That's the only thing I can, because there's no real industry around. There's some in Columbus, but it's not like it's any worse than any other Midwest city, I would say.
Exactly.
It's certainly no worse than Chicago or Detroit or, areas like that. So I was a little thrown off when I read Columbus, Ohio as the most polluted city in the U.S. I'm like, that is just wrong. There's just no way.
I would have
to your point, L.A.
Right.
Even today, L.A.'s got worse smog. It has to be than Columbus or Cincinnati or where we live. So anyway, but my point is we don't see it. If Columbus is as bad as it gets in the U.S., I'm telling you, that ain't bad compared to...
we're doing okay by comparison to, unfortunately, what's going on in Asia. Yeah. Well, they even noted in here in this article that only 9% of the more than 7,800 cities analyzed globally recorded air quality that met the WHO's standard. Yeah, right. Which is average annual levels of the
so we all have bad
particulate
air.
that should not exceed 5 micrograms per cubic meter. So only 9% of the world. And I'm sure those cities are probably like, middle of nowhere type, little city type things, like nowhere near the end, but or not very industrialized.
Try to get your head around this one, staying on the WHO guidelines. Across India, 1.3 billion people, or that's 96% of the population, live with air quality 7 times higher than the WHO guideline. So, like, basically everybody in India is living in a place that's 7 times what the WHO.
That's awful.
It's just crazy, right? It's just one of those, kind of. You see a headline like that, it's like, oh man, that just puts it in perspective, real quick. Not to bring everything down, but there you go. I mean. But again, it's a commentary. I think it's got to be the manufacturing that's happening over there, just the overall population, what it takes to make populations like that go. Yep. Crazy. Anyway, but I think we're a little immune to it.
We are, yes. And let's be honest, we're also kind of sort of responsible for it too, because we don't mind outsourcing so much stuff to those countries that have a little more lax standards probably. But shifting gears to something a little more positive.
Ooh, sustainability.
We have a list of the world's most sustainable companies of 2024.
Companies. Okay, gotcha.
So this is Time and Statista got together. They named the 500 companies that are doing the best for the earth. Now, we always like to talk what some methodology here is. And they didn't get too deep into like what the specific numbers were methodology-wise. But they pointed out that basically when they looked at this, they were looking at companies that had set ambitious targets to reduce their own emissions. They were helping customers reduce emissions, become more energy efficient. They had sustainability programs. They were tracking their performance, whether they were getting high climate scores from nonprofits that measure this kind of stuff. So basically, were they reducing emissions in 21 and 22 when they were most recently, really, taking note of this?
I see.
Are they doing it? Is there a proportion of renewable energy used by their operations? And then have they incorporated sustainability into their business model? So all that stuff overall helped them create a score for each company to decide like who's doing the best. Now the caveat to all this, they did point out, is that even the best of these best companies, which is Schneider Electric, comes in at number 1. Their score was an 88.86 out of a possible 100, which still indicates there's room
still some more
do even
room,
better.
yes.
That's what, a B, maybe a B plus.
It's a B plus. That's a solid B plus in my world. Yes.
Yeah. So good, but still could be even better.
It's not an A.
No, it's not. So let's quickly run through the top 10. I almost said 100. The top 10 companies here: Schneider Electric, NEC Corp,
heard of them.
Moncler, I assume that's how you pronounce that. It's an Italian company.
Yeah.
Brambles,
Don't know.
Illumina, the first one from the U.S. that makes the list. They're a biotech company.
Biotech, yeah.
SGS, Sanofi,
yeah.
NRI, Telefonica, and Cigna is the other one from the U.S. that made the top 10, the insurance company.
When I think sustainability, though, and that's the problem that I have with this list, you've got a lot of what I would call finance or insurance companies on there. It's like, do they just turn down the thermostat and turn off the lights? Is that how they're more sustainable?
They did point
send
that out.
Less paper, invoices, or how exactly does that work? As opposed to like NEC. NEC is a legit manufacturer, right? I mean, to me, that's like, okay, that's legit. Or Schneider Electric, yeah. I mean,
they did
stuff.
call that out. They said that many of the companies ranked highly were industries that don't make physical products, like banking, tech, and
I don't think that's fair. I'm just throwing it out there. MasterCard 13.
There were plenty of companies that show sustainability if possible, even when you make things.
Yes.
I mean, I guess, a company that doesn't necessarily manufacture a product can still
be sustainable. I get it.
Be sustainable and endorse a lot of sustainability, because I know sometimes, like some of the banking
is that
ones,
in there, the endorsement
some
thing?
of the banking companies, for instance, also don't go out of their way to bank with or to lend credit or credibility to companies that don't meet sustainability thresholds. So they're trying to that's their way of trying to be like, hey, our sustainability is not supporting industries and companies that aren't sustainable or aren't taking any efforts to.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You can't just say like, hey, I recycle, but then I spend billions of dollars, helping out companies that are, dumping toxic waste into the river.
Right.
So
because
that would be the exact opposite of it. But yes, to your point, it is a little bit of a nebulous term in a way for some of these companies.
It is, and I guess not surprising. Don't really see anything from here on China, India.
No, I mean, at least not in the top 100. I mean, you got New World Development in Hong Kong is at 43.
Yeah, I got Taiwan in here.
You're not seeing a lot from that part of Asia at all.
Interesting.
No. It's mostly like it's a lot of it's a lot of U.S., a lot of Europe. Australia's got a few in here, so it's a good point.
Well, there you go.
I mean, so you want to talk about why there's that problem with all that pollution is there's a boatload of those companies that are not even pretending to embrace sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
kind of crazy.
Interesting list to check out though, and you can go do some searching if you want to look for some of your favorite company. Like I looked for Apple. I think they were where were they?
Oh, is Apple in there?
313. So they weren't very high, but again, I met a lot of their manufacturing's done in China for their stuff, so I could see why that wouldn't. Microsoft was at 64. That was pretty
software.
Good ranking.
They're just burning energy. Yeah.
That's true, exactly. So as always, all these stuff we're talking about, the links are in the show notes.
No steel plants in there. No U.S. steel.
Probably not. No, I didn't think so. No.
Anyway.
Interesting list. Maybe a slightly more hopeful edge to what we were just talking about.
Oh no, I got the list.
A lot of ways to go.
I got the list.
All right, what do you got?
The best set lists of all time. So these are, for those of you
no
that
controversy here, I'm sure.
Don't know what a set list is. Actually, I don't have any, but if you don't know what a set list is, this is what a band will play when they're playing out live, right? So
they're not just up there making it up as they go. I mean, some bands might. But
I'm sure some bands probably do.
Typically, I would think that they have an idea of what they're doing.
Yes,
each night.
Especially the drummers like to know what the heck the next song is, kind of thing. Or we'll just say the rhythm section, so that the lead singer can go rogue and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah,
but there is, by the way, to me, and we'll get into this. This does the top 10 set list of all times, which I really don't have a problem with it. I'm not gonna, I think some of them are fantastic.
Right.
But I believe there is an art to creating a set list. I mean, when I was in a band, we would kind of not hand ring, but we would spend a lot of time on what song comes next.
Open?
What are you trying to do with the crowd? The ebb and flow, of the energy that goes into it.
Yep.
There is a little bit of a science that happens to it.
You can't just play all the hits right out of the gate.
You can't play all the
boring
hits.
stuff.
Nope. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll give you some of the list here, but it's interesting to note that 7 of these are from the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
So 7 of the top
Not too
10
surprising, I guess.
are from the 60s or the 70s, and then we have a couple that are a little bit more modern.
And all of these bands, even if the ones that were more recent, are bands that have been around for quite some time. I think I'm trying to think with the most Prince may be the most modern artist on here.
Probably.
And I don't think anyone would call Prince modern at this point. Yeah. But that is probably the most recent artist, at least. On here.
So I'll give you. You want me to give you the whole 10, or maybe just the top 5?
Run through the 10, and then let's talk about which ones you are most would be most excited about.
Okay, so number 10 is David Bowie when he was at Hammersmith Odeon in 1973, followed up by Fleetwood Mac at Warner Brothers Studio Soundstage in 1997.
That was the reunion.
The reunion, yes. Joni Mitchell, Isle of Wight, right?
Mm-hmm. Isle of Wight
Festival in 1970. I don't know a lot about Joni, so I don't have a commentary there. You got Johnny Cash coming in with the San Quentin State Prison concert that he did in 1969. Don't know a lot about Johnny Cash. Patti Smith with CBGBs. CBGBs.
That was the show that closed out the CBGBs, one of the most famous clubs in New York.
Yes, in 2006. Now you have Prince at the Carrier Dome in Syracuse in 1985. You have the band playing at the Academy of Music in 1971. Jimi Hendrix at the Seville Theatre in London in 1967. Wow, that would have been cool. The Stones.
It's such a short list too, but still awesome.
Well, that was my commentary there. But the Stones at the Pacific Coliseum in 1972, and then the final, I believe, is the Who at Leeds University in 1970. So just some phenomenal. And again, as a musician, you just look back at these and you're like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
How they with the songs they played and the selections they made. Now, to your point, Jimi Hendrix won, and this was in the Seville Theatre in London, June 4th, 1967. This was probably, I would say, the peak of Hendrix. Really close to the peak of Hendrix. He did it actually an opening rendition of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Yep. That would have been phenomenal.
Rolling Stone,
He only did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 songs.
8 tracks.
8 songs. That's all
he played. But I mean,
Foxy
Lady, Manic Depression, Hey Joe, Purple Haze, Wind Cries Mary, Are You Experienced? I mean, if you know Hendrix at all, that is the greatest hits right there.
That's it right there.
And then the 2 covers on top of that too.
Absolutely. So I'll go next with the Stones. I don't know a lot of the Stones songs. I mean, I'm an average Stone.
Yeah, same here.
But this is. I mean, Stones is one of those iconic bands, right? And so when you think about 1972 at the Pacific Coliseum in Canada, this would have been a great show. It starts off with Brown Sugar. There's quite a few songs in here that you would recognize, and then kind of rounds it out with Jumping Jack Flash and Street Fighting Man. I mean, it's just that was probably an awesome event. The last 2 that I'll talk about would be I'll save the Who. What I love about this one, and this was Leeds University, February 14th, so Valentine's Day, 1970. Yep. What they did is, this is right after they released Tommy, which is a rock opera. They wanted to get back kind of in touch with back to their roots. And so they did a university tour. Now think about it. The Who at this point in time was pretty big.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're probably one of the top 5 top rock bands of the day. And they decide to go on a little university tour. So if you're at Leeds University, who knows where that is? I don't know. I've heard of it, but I don't know where it is. And then all of a sudden you walk into your favorite bar and there's The Who.
Yeah.
And they play a unbelievable set. They play all of Tommy, the whole rock opera they play. They play 38 total songs, which must have taken
including
them hours.
It says a 15-minute rendition of My Generation.
Yes. And by the way, which was kind of at the end, they ended it with Magic Bus, but My Generation was second to last.
Yeah.
That would have been epic. Almost as epic, in my opinion, as Prince. I mean, the Prince one is just like, you got to hang on that one, because this was at the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, March 30th, 1985. You from Let's Go Crazy at the beginning all the way to a 20-minute rendition of Purple Rain at the end. That had to have been just off the charts event.
And that was the year Purple Rain came out too, wasn't it? That was the year after at least or something.
Yes.
So, I mean, that was
so he was at his peak.
absolute peak. Yeah.
Absolute peak.
Exactly.
So anyway, it's fascinating. Did anything ring out
I mean,
to
the
you?
Who one stood out to me. I was going to say for the same reason because
I was battling the Who or Prince at the end there.
Because here's the thing, like this is one of those things where like music in general, music can be very subjective. So what do you think is the perfect set list or the perfect concert can be very subjective too.
Oh, for sure.
The time, it can be the place, the situation, it can be your own personal situation or feelings about it as you go.
For sure.
That could decide whether some great special guests, like like some of these hit some awesome special guests. Like
good point.
The bands, for instance, Bob Dylan showed up and played like 4 or 5 songs at the end. I mean, how blown away would you be to go see like one of your favorite bands and then one of the greatest musicians of all time pops out and plays?
Yeah, I think I'm going to play a couple songs.
Whether they're doing like extended versions, how often they perform. Like sometimes some musicians, like there's certain songs maybe they just don't perform that often. They roll it out for a special occasion or something. So there's a lot of subjectivity. But I thought with the Who one, that one stood out because the circumstances of it.
Yes.
The fact that they're like, all right, we're at the top of our game. We just released this insane rock opera album kind of thing. And very few other bands were really doing that just yet. And we're going to go play the student union of a university on Valentine's Day for any of the lonely hearts out there that don't have something else to do or someone wants to bring their date or something to this.
Just the whole thing is fantastic.
And we're going to rock out 38 songs, including playing our new album top to bottom,
Unbelievable.
That's just that.
Unbelievable.
So that one stood out. And then probably the other one is the Johnny Cash one because
I don't know a lot about that.
The Folsom Prison, if you've ever listened to that album, you should.
Okay.
Even if you're not a big Johnny Cash fan, it's just... It's got such an energy and a vibe to it because he's playing for prisoners.
Yeah,
and you can tell that and if you know anything about the backstory behind this, that he wanted to do this, it started this whole prison tour or whatever, and that people were very nervous about this because he's singing these songs about the working man, about men who have had a rough road in life, and put in a place maybe that they necessarily belong for longer than they should potentially, and so it's a little getting them riled up a little bit.
You don't want to get them all restless,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But it's a fascinating story, and it's an amazing performance, an amazing album. Then just an interesting way to do it. So that you can't argue with that being an absolutely iconic. Particular set list and a performance in general, but. I have no arguments with a lot of these.
No, I got no arguments.
I'm not overly familiar with some of them,
but I see why they picked at least the ones I recognize. I'm like, I totally get it. Yes, that's a great.
Probably the one I know the least about was Patti Smith.
Don't know anything about that.
That's the one that I know probably the fewest songs and knew as little about. But then I read the story behind that, and again, this is the big giant concert that closed out CBGB's, and and had again a bunch of iconic legends that joined her on stage and. Retreaded a bunch of, her famous songs that have been played there at that location. So just good stuff. I do have a question for you related to this. Because I figure this is one we'd probably spend a decent amount of time chatting about, being music junkies. What are your thoughts when you go to a concert? I don't know about you. I don't go to a lot of concerts anymore as much as I used to. But when you did, what are your thoughts about a lot of cover songs, encores, finishing your set but coming back out and doing multiple more songs? Do you want a lot of covers? Do you just want them to cover their stuff? Do you like the idea of the encores where it seems like the show's over but they come back and do I've seen some bands come out and do one more song and some come out and do basically another 6 songs sometimes. That really wasn't an encore. That was just you just took a break. You took a break for a few minutes, go have a drink in the back or something and come back out. So what how do you feel about that? How does that
cover songs? I don't know. I don't know where to land on that one. I don't like them kind of a thing. Like if I'm watching my favorite band, if they are passionate about a particular song, if it's one or something like that, okay. Doing a lot, I don't know. To me, that just misses why I'm there. I'm there to see that band play their songs, their music live. And I'd rather them modify or do something to their songs live to make it a little bit unique.
So you like
a
the
little bit
extended
different.
versions, like riffing for a few minutes.
A little bit of riffing,
longer,
stuff like that. Placed in there, it doesn't have to be every song, but a little bit of that is fun. There's also some certain amount of genius around being able to replicate what you've produced on an album live. That is very hard to do. So anyway, there's a certain genius to that too. The encore, I don't mind so much, just because of the energy of a concert. You know, it's like, no, I don't want this to be done. So I don't mind a couple songs, but yeah, to your point, if you come back and it's like, hey, or if they do multiple encores, like, you know, yay, they then go back. They come back and do an encore, and then they go away.
And come back,
and then they come back for another one. It's
Yeah.
like, what? Are
Like,
we
just
dragging
stop.
back
Let's
the dead?
just
What's
do it,
going on?
yeah.
Hey, oh no, I got someplace I gotta go. I mean, what are we doing? It can get a little.
In my early to mid 20s, when I didn't mind staying out until 1 a.m. or something, maybe that was a little more acceptable.
Yeah,
now, but
yeah.
not something I could do anymore. At this
I
point.
have heard, like, so for example, my favorite band, Rush, when they got towards the end of their touring, you know, they would play a lot of music. It was like a 3-hour show, but they took breaks. And they didn't treat it like it was an encore. They're like, hey, we're going to do some of these songs, then we're going to go sit down for a little bit because we're getting kind of old, and we're going to come back and we'll do it, because it was just arduous for a band like that to play those kind of songs.
No doubt, especially if you're doing it, you know, a couple nights in a row or 3 or 4 times a week or something, you know, so... You know, it's interesting because I feel like we're in a very different place with music obviously, than we used to be.
Right.
And with the whole set list concept, because like Taylor Swift, for instance, this was a big example. This is what she has done her massive tour. It's still ongoing, obviously. Mm-hmm. And there was a big deal made about the fact that she kind of would change things up a little bit from time to time, but it also a big thing amongst
the set list.
Well, not too much like the main
but a little
list,
bit of
but a little bit of nuance potentially. But also though that like her big thing was the Swifties got excited about what was going to be her like encore special songs that she would add. I don't even know if it's necessarily the encore, but like there would be a moment where she would play 2 or 3 special songs supposedly just for that concert stop, just for that tour stop. And granted, I think she's reached a point by now where like she's literally done everything in her catalog at least once somewhere, I think, which is, you know, a lot for, because she's got a big long catalog. But you know, that was a big deal of like, oh, at my show she did this song. At my show she did that one. So that was another thing I was thinking about is
I'm okay with that.
Right, but what do you feel about the ones who maybe would completely change up the set list? So like maybe you went to one and you got to hear, I don't know, maybe you got to hear mostly stuff off of this album, but then the next show was a completely different album that was the bigger focus.
So to me, you're speaking Deadheadisms now, because I believe the Deadheads would I would never got
that's
really
the ones
into
that follow them around,
true, but the part of the lure was that, you know, you would have a cassette recording back in the day of, you know, hey, this is the set list, or what they would call, this is the show from wherever, you know, Pickatawny, Pennsylvania, and then that was a completely different set list,
different vibe, different feel.
Just a couple days later of a show that they played in wherever, New York City.
Can you imagine how hard that is to pull off?
Oh, very hard, very hard. But when you're the band like the Dead, they just get up and play.
Oh, that's
true.
I mean,
it's just that's their MO, right? I mean, they're so good at what they do. They can just get up there. What do you want to play next? XYZ song. Okay, and they're just playing it, and they play it, you know, like it's nobody's business. So I don't know. It depends on the band, I guess.
It'd be hard for a lot of bands to pull it off.
But I do kind of like that, though. I do like specializing it for a city or a region, or at least a little bit. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
it feels cool to me.
I think it kind of is too.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let's talk about retirement.
Oh yes.
You know, maybe we'll have some more time to go to concerts.
Well, because all the again, 7 of those top 10 set lists were in the 60s or 70s.
I was gonna say,
so those people are all retiring right now.
Most of those bands are either no longer performing or no longer live, unfortunately.
So what state are we retiring to and listening to all these wonderful set lists?
All right. Well, let's see. What was this site? Bankrate. Not a site I've ever heard of before. But Bankrate put out a list, or basically a ranking of what are the top spots, as in states, the top states across the U.S. to retire in for this year. And did a ranking of them, essentially. And they ranked them. Here's the criteria. They did a good job of spelling out the criteria.
All right, sir.
40% of the ranking came from affordability.
Okay.
25% overall well-being. That's a little bit of a nebulous term, but I guess, whatever.
Yeah, okay.
20% the cost of and quality of healthcare. Makes sense. Then, to a lesser extent, 10% the weather and 5% crime. Deciding, what's going to be the number one. So, the number one state to retire in is apparently Delaware. Number 2 is West Virginia. 3 is Georgia, 4 South Carolina, 5 Missouri. You'll notice a lot of those who've got a lot of southern states, a lot of Midwest states
Interesting.
that are high on the list.
Interesting.
The big part of that being because of affordability. When you go into the further data where it actually ranks out each
Delaware's
individual
affordable.
piece.
How's Delaware?
Delaware
number
wasn't.
one?
That was the thing. Is Delaware was not.
I got question marks around
They
Delaware.
ranked number 20 on affordability.
Okay.
But and 39 for healthcare. But
What?
they ranked second for well-being, 8th for weather. So that was the two big factors that helped them.
That still doesn't add up to number one, but I don't know.
36 was their ranking on crime or whatever. But then like West Virginia was number 1 at affordability, which is why it bounced its way up to number 2. And when you look at most of the top 10 or so, affordability is a big part of it. Plus weather is usually ones they have going into effect. That's why a lot of the southern states tend to make it. They tend to be a little bit cheaper, but also have good weather year round.
Yep.
Believe it or not, Florida made it to number 8. Which, granted, it is a well-known retirement spot.
Well, they got the weather's great,
obviously,
except for the hurricane season.
It was weather. It was the well-being. They have fairly mid ground to decent healthcare ranking. Now the affordability was 37 for them, so they're near the bottom end of the affordability part. But let's quickly talk also the bottom 5, the places you don't want to retire to. Which number 50, the dead last was Alaska.
Got to be the weather.
I guess I understand that one. Yes. The number 49, New York, 48, Washington, 47, California, and 46, North Dakota.
Oh,
so
North Dakota, really? Oh, weather. I see. They got dinged on weather.
Yeah, that's
it's
probably
cold
what
up
Washington's, is mostly about the weather too, I would assume.
Yeah, so they're saying old people don't like cold, I guess, is what we're seeing here.
Affordability in Washington was very high as well. That was, near the bottom of the rankings there.
Interesting. I would never have thought to retire to Delaware, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, I wouldn't either.
South Carolina, okay, maybe. Georgia, okay. Maybe it's close to Florida.
There you go.
Missouri, I don't know, but West Virginia.
I don't know about that one either.
That's overall ranked 2. Affordability was number 1.
They were dead last in quality and cost of healthcare.
Yes, they're number 1 in affordability. So dead last in healthcare.
It's cheap, but you're not. Who knows what's going to happen when you go to the doctor? So,
and then middle of the road for just about everything else. Crime,
essentially,
well-being stuff.
So check this out because you can individually, when you go to the chart near the bottom, you can check out the individual ranks for each thing and decide like Idaho. Because to me, healthcare is a big interesting one. Like Idaho, Colorado, Washington, Utah, Oregon were the top 5 for quality and cost of healthcare. So it looks like when you get out to the West, you get much better and cheaper healthcare prices and better quality healthcare.
Yep.
But unfortunately for a lot of them, the affordability was a little bit higher.
Yes.
Well-being was a little bit on the higher side.
Yes.
Weather is not as great in those areas. But see, the thing of the weather one, though, to me, that's a little bit subjective because it depends on...
That's what I'm saying. I don't know that all old people don't like cold, but go ahead.
Right. I'm not someone who enjoys being excessively hot.
No.
So I don't want to live in a place where I'm sweaty all the time and it's super humid all the time.
Right.
I also don't necessarily want it to be bitter cold all the time either.
Fair.
I think it's part of why this area where we're in is nice because we get a little bit of everything. We actually get 4 seasons.
But not a lot of either one.
Exactly.
I mean, just enough, in the winter to be a little annoying, in the summer a little annoying.
Exactly.
Other than that,
and for our local listeners who care about what's happening here in the tri-state, Kentucky ranked 21, Ohio 26, and Indiana was a little further down, I believe. Where was Indiana? Indiana was 23. I take it back. They were a little ahead of Ohio.
Oh,
so
there you go. Yeah. All stuck in the middle.
About middle, exactly.
All
middle of the
stuck
back
in the
there,
middle.
too.
Yeah.
All right. So, hey, if you want to try to make a decision that you're retiring soon, I wish I could say I was. Go check out this list to find out what maybe the best states you can go to.
Well, so that's at the end of life, right? Retiring. But in the beginning, let's say you want a starter home.
Let's bounce back here because we just were talking about at the beginning about the high costs of rent.
Yes.
And how hard it is to rent somewhere. So maybe you're like, all right, they're always telling people like, hey, don't throw your money away on renting.
Yes.
Invest that into a home instead. I don't know if that's any easier right now. And tell us why that can be a little problematic.
Here's the headline. In more than 200 U.S. cities, the typical starter home for sale is worth $1 million or higher.
Yeah.
Just put your mind around that for a second. 200 U.S. cities.
237 to be precise.
Yes, in more than, you're right, 237 U.S. cities, the typical starter home is $1 million or higher. That's just insanity, if you ask me.
Let me ask you real quick here.
Yes.
When they say worth $1 million or higher, is that meaning what they just think the value is not necessarily what they're being sold for? But they
yes.
could be
So this is a
valued at
Zillow
million or
Zestimate,
higher.
I believe.
Okay.
So this was put on by Zillow. It is a report. Did you ever get your Zestimates or whatever?
I
If
probably
you sign up for
did.
Zillow, you get like a monthly Zestimate. I think they call it a Zestimate.
I probably did when I was selling my first house.
Yeah,
You know, like,
yeah,
you know,
right.
figured out
Now
what
I'm
was.
still on their email list, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you get it. So I don't know is actually what they're selling for. It would be the perceived value,
Right. But I would imagine that perceived value might actually be lower than what a lot of these places are being sold for as well.
Could
So,
be,
yeah.
could be. Now, just 5 years ago, there were only 84 cities that had a typical starter home of $1 million or more.
That's nuts.
You know, in when you look at the list, so when we take a look at where these are coming from, when you read into it a little bit, obviously half of the cities worth $1 million of starter homes were in California.
Follows the same pattern as that rent article. In a way,
It follows the exact same order. So, hey, what are your top states with the most expensive starter homes, or those that have the $1 million or more? California, New York, New Jersey, Florida, Massachusetts. Those are your top ones.
Yeah.
And then, well, I'll have you know that I don't believe Ohio, Indiana, or Kentucky even have one. So we don't have a single city that the median starter home is $1 million or more, which is just fine.
Yeah.
Oh, it is surprising to see some places like Kansas has a city. I don't know what it is that has starter homes that are more than $1 million.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
Kansas?
No.
Or in Virginia or Utah? I guess that's got to be like Salt Lake, or no, not Salt Lake. It would be something like Park City.
Yeah,
or
or
something
Provo or
like
something.
that.
Maybe,
Something like that, where every home, the median starter home, and what do they call a starter home? Well, a starter home, by the way, it occupies the lower third of what the overall aggregate homes are selling for in that area. So if your starter home is $1 million,
what's happening on the higher
lower
end?
third
Yeah.
of all sales that are happening. So isn't that even more ridiculous? It just gets in the commentary like, how do people afford this stuff? How are there 234 cities that you have to buy $1 million or more just to have a starter?
Which means
home?
you need to be a multimillionaire.
You got to be making
Yourself,
bank.
probably,
You got to be.
yeah.
It's so, to me, it's just a further commentary. And I'm not an economist. I don't understand it, I guess, to a certain degree. But the distortion is just, I don't even know. I mean, having $1 million starter home is just so foreign to me. I can't, as you can see, I can't even get my head around it because my starter home, I think, was in the $70,000 range. I mean, we are so far away from that. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and the thing too,
There's
what's funny is there's a picture that they show in this article of a home for sale in Ventura, California, that mentions that the median price of a home sold in Ventura County was $882,000. This was back in December. And you look at this house, and I mean, my house looks like an opulent palace compared to this thing.
Yes.
Compared to what
Absolutely.
I'm seeing here. This is a single floor. I mean, great, I can't see the whole, thing here. Whatever.
Oh,
but
no, yeah.
I have to imagine this is a fairly small, maybe 2-bedroom home.
This is borderline shack.
Yeah,
in
that
our
does
area.
not
This
have
is like
a lot of
backyard shack.
Right. There's not a lot of perks. There's not a lot of amazing design features here, and yet this thing probably costs. And this thing almost costs $1 million.
Now, here's interesting that I'll pull out of Zillow says that markets associated with lower home ownership rates tend to have more pricey starter homes. So less people that are buying it, lower homeowner rates means the price for starter homes goes up. I guess that makes sense. You have less people willing to buy, which gets into your rent thing.
Right.
The reason why your rents are going up is because nobody's buying, and so there's more demand for rent. That just drives up rent prices. So they also comment that, obviously several years ago, and this is still the case, there's a lack of supply.
Right.
So anytime you have a lack of supply, prices go up. That's easy, but still, to me, so maybe there's some generational stuff happening here. If you got the younger generation that they don't want to buy, they're going to rent.
Right.
Maybe that's all they can think that they can afford. And clearly, if there's 234 cities out there where you got to buy $1 million home just to start, I'm renting.
Yeah.
I guess, right, for my entire life.
Again, unless that's one of those cities where the rent prices are also astronomical. But again, I suppose also if the median starter home price is $1 million plus, then the mortgage rates are probably outlandish too, and it's probably not a heck of a lot less than your
I can't even
rental.
how do you make a down payment on that thing? You need 30% up front, 20% up front.
Yeah.
Oof.
Good luck.
Anyway, yeah, I can buy a house for years for your starter and a really nice house.
Exactly. You could buy a
For your
starter
down
home
payment.
here, all the costs paid for what it would cost for a down payment.
Absolutely. But
Oh,
anyway, so I guess we've hit our list.
Yeah,
Now we've depressed everybody with our bites
it's a
this
mix.
year.
I know it's a mixed bag of stuff here. Look, all I'll say is, hey, come to the tri-state area.
There you go.
It's fairly affordable here.
Ain't nothing wrong with the Midwest.
I know everything's expensive in one way or another, and everything penny pinches here and there. But man, there's definitely some places where it's a little bit easier to do than others, and I think I think these coastal cities and hey, I'd love to live in some of these places, but don't see that happening anytime in my lifetime.
No.
Unless BlueStar's planning on upping my salary quite a bit.
Well, you and me both, brother.
I can be a cross country correspondent, So. All right. Well, that wraps up our Tech Bites. We still got a TEConnecting with us, obviously. But hey, before we do that, as always, big thanks to all of our sponsors here on the TEConnect podcast. We appreciate all of your support for the show and your ongoing dedication to our TEConnect program. I also, though, man, if you like this stuff, if you like what we're talking about today, if you'd like Dean and I to talk about things that may be a little more exciting and positive than like rents, pollution, skyrocketing home costs, send us your ideas. Like we didn't plan on coming. Here's what happens when we do one of these episodes. I get together my list of ideas.
Yep.
Dean gets his list together. He sends me what he wants.
Yep.
I pick out of mine what I want to talk about. I basically just make the list.
Mash them.
Here's 6 topics. Inadvertently, as I was putting it together, I realized, man, a lot of these things are kind of weaving a little together, and they're all kind of a little depressing. Not necessarily intentional, but that's how it happened for this particular episode. But if you've got ideas, like, hey, I came across this awesome list. Hey, this really cool article, this storyline that I think that you guys
riff on this
should talk about. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Send it on in.
Or if you have thoughts on it you want to share with us, we'll read those on the show and then riff about it as well.
Absolutely.
Send that stuff in to us. We need to hear about that. We want to know about that, as well as any ideas for what you want to hear about on the show from guests, about technology, about industries. Send that stuff to us. Go out there and find our link in our show notes. You can drop an idea to us. You do that, we'll send you a t-shirt.
Yep, there you go. Boom.
So simple.
So easy.
Just for sending in a tech bite, you can send us a tech beef, an idea for the show, a guest you want to hear from. Just send something to us. We'll get a t-shirt sent out to you. We've done a little bit lately. I've had some folks reach out, and I've sent some t-shirts out.
Yep.
And always, as also, you can find us on BlueStar's various social media pages. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can also email us anytime, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, Dean, let's wrap things up with what's TEConnecting with you.
Yes.
One more thing we can ramble about today. What's going on in your world?
Maybe there was a little bit too much depression going on there.
Give us something a little more positive.
I know it's political season, right?
It is? What?
Here in America,
when did that happen?
You can maybe sometimes feel like, are we still great? Is it still a good place to be? Some people even question, should I be moving out of America? Well, I'm here to tell you, heck no is the answer to that, and I'm gonna give you some freaking awesome reasons why U.S. just rocks. Period. I came across this article that I thought did a really good job of opening it up. It's titled 6 Chart Sunday, God Bless the USA type of things. I'm going to hit you with 6 reasons why the U.S. rocks.
All right.
More people want to move here than anywhere else in the world, hands down, by far. Yeah. If you look at it, our rating, it's top destination for international migrants that want to come. People still want to come to the U.S. by far. When you look at the statistics, and they break this down to numbers, 50.6 is the rating that the U.S. gets. The closest one to us is Germany at 15.8.
Wow.
So they're not even close of people that want to come here. So people want to come here. They still want to come here. People want to invest more in the United States than anywhere in the world. Hands down, not even close. If you look at the stock market for the U.S., $52 trillion, you can roll up almost everyone else in the world, China, Japan, India, France, UK, Canada, just lump them all in. You're still not even close to the $52 trillion that people invest in the United States. So that's number 2. Number 3, more people want to study here than anywhere else in the world. I know we got problems with our colleges and our universities, depending on what your beliefs are. But anyway, still, people want to come to U.S. universities. When you look at the top 50 universities, I believe we have like 40 in the top 50 or something. It's an astronomical number of people. So education, still a great place to get educated. Number 4, more people want to start businesses here than anywhere in the world. Number 1, as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. When you think about it, more education, more money through investment, things of that nature. There is no place in the world that entrepreneurs want to come rather than right here. And then number 5, innovations are more empowered, inventors, are more empowered to invent here than nearly anywhere else in the world. If you look at the Global Innovation Index, nobody even comes close to the United States. So we index at like 65 or 63.5. One of the closest is China, I guess, at 55. But even them, they're that's dramatically lower than us. Nobody even comes close. I take that back. It looks like Sweden comes in at like 64 somehow. I don't know. But anyway, so there's still innovation that is happening here. People want to come and be innovative here. And then the last one, oh my gosh, where did it go? I apologize. Let me hop back here. The final one is we produce more, coming out of the Olympics, more medal-winning Olympians than anybody else.
We had like 100 plus, I think, whatever.
There you go. So
like
more athletes than anyone.
Yeah.
There you go. There's your rah-rah for the U.S.
All right.
We're still not a bad place to have.
Speaking of the Olympics, man, that is the one time I feel like we all become like uber patriots.
It is.
I don't care what your overall feelings of the country are, whether you're someone that's
rooting for
typically
the
a flag waver or doesn't really care
100%.
most of the time.
Yep.
Everyone watches the Olympics. We're like, America, yeah, do it. Kick their butts, which I did enjoy. I didn't watch a lot of the Olympics, but everything I did watch, I did very much enjoy.
I agree.
Plus, I will say, I think, again, a related note, I think Paris did a great job, I think, overall, and I think NBC did an amazing job with their coverage this year.
Unbelievable.
It was one of the more fun watches of the Olympics that I can think of.
I'm in awe at how they can pull that off.
Yeah.
All those games going on, great commentators from all. I mean, they never missed a beat. Like I would dial into the ping pong, and they still had great commentators. Keeping you engaged and giving you backstories of what's going on. And it's really
that is my favorite thing about the Olympics is like stuff that you watch. Sports, and I use that loosely in some of the breakdancing. Like, all right, but even that was fascinating, but in its own way. But like, I love watching this stuff because it's stuff that you otherwise would never care about. Like, you will never see me turn on volleyball for any reason. You'll never see me watch diving for any reason.
Yeah,
95% of what's going on at the Olympics is not something I would ever tune in and watch on a random day.
But for those 2 weeks,
for some reason, during that time, when it's the best of the best competing out there, even when I'm watching sport, I'm like, I don't know what's good and what's bad. Like I was watching a lot, obviously U.S. gymnastics is a big deal, U.S. women's team in particular, obviously. And I'm out there watching, Simone Biles and then, the team, whatever, get out there and do their thing. And I'm like, I don't know what's supposed to be good or bad to this. I mean, they're doing stuff that if I even attempted to do, if I even looked at it too hard, would hurt myself severely. and yet I'm amazed by this, and I'm watching every second of it and loving it.
Simone's on a different level, though.
Oh,
even though you can tell,
yes. Even if you're not into it, you can tell.
It's like, dang,
she's doing
just
things
outperforming
no one else
everybody
can do.
here.
Exactly.
It's just like it's a joy to watch that kind of. I will make this comment though: the men's basketball team almost like dropped the ball. And when you compare that quote unquote dream team to the real
old dream team,
I'm going with the OG with Jordan and
Larry Bird
and Pippen and oh my gosh, and Charles Barkley. I mean, what a team that was. And they wouldn't have stood for anything close to what happened with this one. I digress.
Maybe they took their foot off the gas to make things a little more exciting.
So what's TEConnecting with you?
All right. So speaking of China, sort of, because China was second, I think, in the number of medals.
Yes, they were.
I believe
number 2. Yes.
So China has built a very interesting bridge and tunnel system that breaks 10 different world records.
Oh wow!
For it's a bridge and tunnel sea crossing. So this is I highly recommend you check out the article link because just seeing a picture of what this thing looks like is fascinating. But essentially, this is a new cross-sea tunnel and bridge system that's located in the Guangdong province in South China. It's called the Shenzhen Zhongshan Link. I apologize if I butchered that at all. It's an architectural marvel, though, that basically this whole area, this part, it's a part of the connecting point from the Pearl River to the South China Sea called the Pearl River Estuary.
Okay.
Which is this massive waterway that is ringed by Hong Kong, Macau, 9 other cities, some of the most densely populated areas in China. And essentially, a lot of people have to traverse between these cities to get to work.
Okay.
And so they wanted to build some new bridge systems to help make that passageway a little easier by going straight across the estuary.
Uh-huh.
So this thing runs for 15 miles, connecting the 2 cities that are in the name. It's got 2 bridges essentially on either side. That in the middle, there's not exactly in the middle, but there's a point in the middle where there's a tunnel that kicks in.
Oh, cool.
And they've got these cool little arrowhead artificial islands they created.
Okay.
Where the tunnels occur. And so basically you drive along the bridge, you go underwater through the tunnel, pop out the other side, cross the bridge.
Get out of town.
It has turned a trip that used to be a roughly 2-hour drive to get from one end to the other.
Yeah.
Rounding the coast essentially and taking some other bridges, shorter bridges, to just 30 minutes now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They just opened this at the end of June.
I'll be darned.
So now let's talk about some of those records because they're not really any records that are a big deal. It's not the world's longest bridge. In fact, there's another bridge that crosses this area that became the world's longest, I think, a few years back.
Okay.
But some of the other ones that it did qualify for, largest span for a fully offshore steel box girder suspension bridge.
Okay.
Highest bridge deck.
Oh.
Highest wind resistance test speed for a suspension bridge.
Okay.
Largest steel bridge deck with hot mix epoxy asphalt paving. This one is interesting, longest 2-way 8-lane immersed tube tunnel. So when you get into that tunnel, it's 8 lanes.
Jeez.
Holy
moly.
They have robots down inside the tunnel.
Of course they do.
That are monitoring for any safety concerns, if there's any
leaks,
any issues, any fires or anything.
Yeah.
Also keeping an eye out for accidents.
Oh,
and if there's accidents, they have a whole light system that can guide people the proper direction to go, what lane to get into and stuff.
Yeah.
Really just
sounds pretty high tech.
Absolute engineering marvel.
Yeah.
So check it out if nothing else just to see the picture of what this thing looks like because it's super cool just to visualize and see it. It's one of those
kind of
things
sounds like a theme park ride.
It kind of does.
Going under.
I don't know, my wife hates going on bridges that are over water.
Oh yeah.
Especially if it's kind of something that's got a high rise or you can't see the other side. She would probably hate it. I don't think it has too many of those rises like that, but I admit even after because I think that the longest bridge I recall being on the waters, I was going from, I believe, Alabama area to New Orleans on a drive once. And there's what is that lake down there?
Pontchartrain?
Yeah. There's a huge bridge that was going over a big section of that we were on for, I don't know, probably
felt like an hour,
10, 15 minutes or more. Yeah. And I just remember being like, this is a little unsettling after a while because you're just driving
Get me off
over
here.
Empty water. You can't see. you can't get to a point where there's no land in sight. You're just like, I don't know about this. So
right.
This might be a little unsettling, but it's pretty cool to see. So that is what's TEConnecting with us today.
There you go.
As I mentioned, all of these things we've talked about, all these articles, all these TEConnecting stuff, go to the show notes. You'll find links for this stuff.
Yep.
And feel free to share your thoughts on some of these with us as well. Unfortunately, it is time for us to unplug. So until next time, hey, come to this amazing country, but good luck finding a place to live.
There you go. Yeah, that you can afford.
Exactly. Tell us what your favorite set list and concert of all time is. And as always, folks, please stay connected. TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by Elo. Everyone loves a self-service kiosk. Well, maybe not everyone.
Most people.
I do.
Yes.
I think self-service kiosks are lots of fun. But when you put
we can
one,
make that bowl clean. Everybody likes.
Yeah.
All right, let's make the clean.
And people complain about it and be like, no, I can't.
Yeah, but they still use them.
That's right. They do. But hey, when you try to put one outside, for, let's say, ticketing, fueling your charging stations, wayfinding, vending, not just any display is going to hold up for that job, right? You can't just throw like a random TV outside and hope that it holds up out in the weather.
Well, you can try, but it won't work.
You can try. It's not going to last too long.
No.
That's where Elo's outdoor open frame touchscreens come in. I guess they're open frame outdoor as well.
Yes.
These are purpose built for ease of integration into an outdoor kiosk enclosure. It's called the 90 series. They offer a brilliant, optically bonded, weatherproof, open frame monitor with edge-to-edge glass. You can mount it in landscape, portrait, and upward-facing orientations, providing optimal flexibility for integrating into any kind of counter, kiosk, or cabinet design. Now, you might be thinking like, all right, but screens outside don't go so great sometimes. I don't know if you ever try to like stare at your phone on a super sunny day.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hard.
Yeah, right.
Well, they've got that covered too. To provide unmitigated performance from day to night, there's an ambient light sensor that automatically adjusts the display's brightness to optimize power consumption, extend the display's life, and enhance that viewing experience. Now available in 27 and 10-inch sizes, these touchscreens have built-in thermal protection, extended operating temperatures, direct sunlight readability, and are Energy Star 8.0 certified. To learn more and check out the spec sheets for both size options, visit the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar Elo representative.